Hello, and welcome back to Speak English Daily.
Hi, everyone. We are very happy to see you here today.
I need to tell you something, and I'm still thinking about it days later. It was one of those moments where you replay it in your head and wish you could go back and just stay quiet.
That already sounds like trouble. What happened?
I was at a small gathering, not a party, more like a quiet dinner with a few people I didn't know very well. Everyone was talking, but the energy felt calm. People were speaking slowly, choosing their words. And then I jumped in.
Let me guess, you brought a different kind of energy into the room?
That's one way to say it. Someone mentioned they had just gone through a tough week at work. It wasn't dramatic, just a simple statement. And I thought, okay, let's lighten the mood. So I made a joke. A pretty loud one.
And it didn't land the way you expected?
Not even close. People smiled politely, but no one really laughed. And then the conversation just shifted. It became quieter, slower. I didn't realize until later, but the vibe felt off right after I spoke.
That moment when you feel like you stepped slightly out of rhythm with everyone else?
Yes, that's it. At the time, I thought I was helping. I thought I was making things more comfortable. But looking back, I think I made it worse.
It's interesting how often that happens. We speak with good intention, but we don't always match the situation.
That's what bothered me. It wasn't what I said exactly. It was when I said it. Or how. I didn't really stop to look at what was happening around me.
You reacted quickly.
Too quickly. I didn't pause. I didn't observe. I just spoke.
And now it's staying in your mind because you can see the gap between what you meant to do and what actually happened.
Yeah, and I keep thinking, if I had just waited a few seconds, I might have understood the moment better.
That small pause can change everything.
That's what I'm starting to realize. It's not just about having good English or knowing what to say. It's about knowing when to say it.
That idea has a name, even if people don't always say it directly.
You mean reading the room?
Yes, that's the phrase.
I've heard it before, but I don't think I ever really understood it. I thought it just meant being polite.
It goes deeper than that. Being polite is part of it, but reading the room is more about awareness. It's about noticing what's happening around you before you decide to speak.
So it's not just about words, it's about timing, maybe even silence.
All of that. Imagine you walk into a room and you don't say anything for a moment. You just observe. Who is speaking? How fast are they talking? Are people relaxed or are they serious?
So you're collecting information first.
Yes, you're giving yourself a few seconds to understand the environment. Most people skip that step. They walk in and immediately try to contribute.
That's me. I feel like if I don't say something quickly, I'll miss the chance.
That feeling is common, but it often leads to speaking without context. And when you don't have context, your words might not fit the situation.
That makes sense. It's like joining a conversation in the middle without knowing what happened before.
Exactly. You might say something that sounds fine on its own, but in that specific moment, it feels out of place.
So reading the room is really about slowing down your reaction.
That's a big part of it. You can't control the room itself. You can't control what people are feeling or what they've experienced, but you can control how you respond to it.
That sounds very calm, almost like you're stepping back instead of jumping in.
That's a good way to describe it. You step back for a moment, even if it's just a few seconds, and in that space, you decide whether to speak, what to say, or even if silence is the better choice.
Silence feels uncomfortable sometimes.
It does, especially if you're used to filling it. But silence can also be a sign of awareness. It shows that you're paying attention.
I never thought of it that way. I always thought silence meant I didn't have anything to say.
Sometimes it means you're choosing not to say something yet, and that choice can be more powerful than speaking too soon.
So, in my situation, instead of jumping in with a joke, I could have just listened a bit longer.
You might have noticed the tone more clearly. You might have realized that people weren't looking for humor in that moment.
And then I could have responded differently. differently. Maybe something softer, or maybe nothing at all.
That's the idea. Reading the room doesn't mean you stop being yourself. It means you adjust how you express yourself based on what's happening around you.
That actually feels more difficult than just speaking freely.
It is more difficult. It requires awareness and a bit of discipline. But over time, it becomes more natural.
I think I've been focusing too much on what I want to say and not enough on what's already being said.
That shift in focus changes everything. When you pay attention first, your words tend to fit better.
So it's less about being clever and more about being aware.
Yes, awareness first, words second.
That shift in focus sounds simple, but I don't think I've been doing it at all. I usually speak as soon as I feel something in my mind.
That's more common than you think. Most people don't notice it because it feels natural.
I think for me, it's almost automatic. There's a small silence, and I feel like I need to fill it. If I don't, I start feeling awkward.
I've noticed that habit in a lot of conversations. People treat silence like a problem that needs to be fixed immediately.
Yes, that's it. Silence feels like something is wrong, so I try to fix it by talking.
And when you do that, you don't give yourself time to understand what's happening around you.
Which is probably why I end up saying things that don't match the moment.
There are a few patterns behind that. Talking to fill silence is one of them. Another is trying to impress people.
I think I do that too. Not always, but sometimes I want to say something interesting or funny so people notice me.
That intention isn't bad on its own, but it can push you to speak before you've fully understood the situation.
So instead of listening, I'm preparing what to say next.
Yes, you're focused on your own response rather than the shared moment.
I've noticed something else as well. Sometimes I don't even realize what kind of mood the group is in. I just assume it's casual.
That's another common mistake. Assuming instead of observing. Each group has its own rhythm, and it can change quickly.
So if I walk into a room and assume it's relaxed, but actually people are serious, I'll completely miss the tone.
And your words will feel out of place, even if they're perfectly fine in another context.
That explains a lot. It's not that my English is wrong, it's that my timing and awareness are off.
That's a more accurate way to see it.
I think I've been focusing too much on what I want to say and not enough on what's already being said.
That shift in focus changes everything. When you pay attention first, your words tend to fit better.
So it's less about being clever and more about being aware.
Yes, awareness first, words second.
That shift in focus sounds simple, but I don't think I've been doing it at all. I usually speak as soon as I feel something in my mind.
That's more common than you think. Most people don't notice it because it feels natural.
I think for me, it's almost automatic. There's a small silence, and I feel like I need to fill it. If I don't, I start feeling awkward.
I've noticed that habit in a lot of conversations. People treat silence like a problem that needs to be fixed immediately.
Yes, that's it. Silence feels like something is wrong, so I try to fix it by talking.
And when you do that, you don't give yourself time to understand what's happening around you.
Which is probably why I end up saying things that don't match the moment.
There are a few patterns behind that. Talking to fill silence is one of them. Another is trying to impress people.
I think I do that too. Not always, but sometimes I want to say something interesting or funny so people notice me.
That intention isn't bad on its own, but it can push you to speak before you've fully understood the situation.
So instead of listening, I'm preparing what to say next.
Yes, you're focused on your own response rather than the shared moment.
I've noticed something else as well. Sometimes I don't even realize what kind of mood the group is in. I just assume it's casual.
That's another common mistake. Assuming instead of observing. Each group has its own rhythm, and it can change quickly.
So if I walk into a room and assume it's relaxed, but actually people are serious, I'll completely miss the tone.
And your words will feel out of place, even if they're perfectly fine in another context.
That explains a lot. It's not that my English is wrong, it's that my timing and awareness are off.
That's a more accurate way to see it.
I think I've been focusing too much on what I want to say and not enough on what's already being said.
That shift in focus changes everything. When you pay attention first, Your words tend to fit better.
So it's less about being clever and more about being aware.
Yes, awareness first, words second.
That shift in focus sounds simple, but I don't think I've been doing it at all. I usually speak as soon as I feel something in my mind.
That's more common than you think. Most people don't notice it because it feels natural.
I think for me, it's almost automatic. There's a small silence, and I feel like I need to fill it. If I don't, I start feeling awkward.
I've noticed that habit in a lot of conversations. People treat silence like a problem that needs to be fixed immediately.
Yes, that's it. Silence feels like something is wrong, so I try to fix it by talking.
And when you do that, you don't give yourself time to understand what's happening around you.
Which is probably why I end up saying things that don't match the moment.
There are a few patterns behind that. Talking to fill silence is one of them. Another is trying to impress people.
I think I do that too. Not always, but sometimes I want to say something interesting or funny so people notice me.
That intention isn't bad on its own, but it can push you to speak before you fully understood the situation.
So instead of listening, I'm preparing what to say next.
Yes, you're focused on your own response rather than the shared moment.
I've noticed something else as well. Sometimes I don't even realize what kind of mood the group is in. I just assume it's casual.
That's another common mistake, assuming instead of observing. Each group has its own rhythm, and it can change quickly.
So if I walk into a room and assume it's relaxed, but actually people are serious, I'll completely miss the tone.
And your words will feel out of place, even if they're perfectly fine in another context.
That explains a lot. It's not that my English is wrong, it's that my timing and awareness are off.
That's a more accurate way to see it.
I think I've been treating conversation like something I need to perform well in, instead of something I need to understand first.
That's a strong observation. When you focus on performance, you rush. When you focus on understanding, you slow down.
Slowing down still feels uncomfortable, though.
It will at first, but let's look at how this plays out in real situations. It's easier to see it clearly with examples.
That would help. I learn better when I can see the difference.
Imagine you're at a small gathering with friends. People are sitting around, talking quietly. One person says they've been feeling stressed lately.
Okay, I can picture that.
Now let's play the version where you don't read the room.
All right, I walk in, hear that sentence, and I jump in with something like, "Oh, stress is nothing, you just need a vacation," and maybe I laugh a bit.
And what happens next?
People might smile politely again, but it feels off, like I didn't really listen to what the person said.
You responded, but you didn't connect.
Yes, it feels disconnected, almost like I ignored the emotion in the room.
Now let's try a different version. Same situation, but you pause for a moment.
So I hear them say they've been stressed, and instead of jumping in, I just listen.
Maybe you notice their tone is low, a bit tired.
Then I could say something like, "That sounds rough. Has it been going on for a while?"
That response fits the moment more closely.
It feels calmer, less about me, more about them.
And the conversation continues naturally from there.
I can see the difference clearly. In the first version, I was trying to change the mood quickly. In the second, I accepted the mood and responded to it.
That's the key shift. You're not forcing the conversation in a new direction, you're moving with it.
I think I've been doing the opposite most of the time. I walk in and try to lead even when I don't understand what's already happening.
And that creates friction, even if it's subtle.
It's interesting because in the moment I feel confident when I speak quickly, but later I realize I missed something important.
Confidence without awareness can lead to those kinds of moments.
So the better approach is slower, quieter, and more observant.
Yes, you don't need to stop speaking. You just need to speak at the right time in the right way.
That sounds simple when you say it, but I can tell it takes practice.
It does, but once you start noticing these patterns, you begin to adjust naturally.
I think I'll start by paying attention to silence instead of trying to escape it.
That's a good place to begin.
I'm wondering, does this get harder in more serious situations, like at work?
It usually does. The stakes feel higher, so the impact of saying the wrong thing becomes more noticeable.
I think that's where I struggle the most. With friends, it's awkward but manageable. At work, it can feel risky.
That's because the room is often more structured. People are paying attention not just to what you say, but how you say it.
I've had a moment like that recently. It was during a small team meeting. Everyone looked focused, a bit tense. I didn't fully understand why, but I felt it.
And what did you do?
I tried to lighten things again. I said something like, "This feels too serious. We need some energy in here." And I laughed a little.
And how did people react?
Very politely, but no one followed my lead. One person just continued the meeting like I hadn't said anything.
That kind of response tells you a lot.
Yeah, at the time I felt ignored, but now I think I just misread the situation.
Most likely, the group was focused on something important, maybe a deadline, maybe a problem. Their attention was already directed.
So my comment felt unnecessary.
Not just unnecessary, slightly out of sync with the purpose of the moment.
I didn't even consider their body language. People were leaning forward, looking at their notes, speaking carefully.
Those are strong signals. When people slow down their speech, lower their tone, and focus their posture, it usually means the conversation matters.
And I came in with a completely different energy.
Which can feel disruptive, even if your intention is positive.
So what would a better response look like in that situation?
Let's walk through it. Same meeting, same atmosphere, quiet, focused, a bit tense. You notice people are serious.
This time, I don't speak immediately.
Right. You pause. You listen to what's being discussed.
Maybe I hear that they're talking about a problem or a deadline.
And instead of changing the tone, you align with it.
I could say something like, "It seems like this is a priority right now. Is there anything I can help with?"
That fits the room much better.
It shows I understand what's happening instead of trying to change it.
And it makes you part of the conversation rather than outside of it.
I think I've been trying to control the mood too much.
That's an important realization. You can't always change the mood of a room, especially in serious settings.
So instead of trying to shift it, I should first understand it.
Yes, observe first, respond second.
It keeps coming back to that pause.
Because that pause gives you information. Without it, you're acting without context.
I've noticed that in meetings, even a few seconds of silence can feel long.
It can, but those few seconds allow you to read facial expressions, tone, even small details like how quickly people respond to each other.
So if people are speaking slowly and carefully, I should match that pace.
Matching the room is a strong skill. It helps your words feel natural in that environment.
And if I don't match it, I stand out in a way that doesn't help.
Exactly. Standing out isn't always a good thing. Sometimes it creates distance instead of connection.
I think I used to believe that being confident meant speaking quickly and bringing energy.
That's one version of confidence, but there's another kind, quiet confidence.
What does that look like?
It looks like someone who doesn't rush, someone who listens fully before speaking, someone who chooses their words with care.
That sounds more controlled.
It is, and it's often more effective, especially in serious situations.
So, in a meeting, the goal isn't to be the most noticeable person, it's to be the most aware.
That's a better way to approach it.
I can see how this connects back to what you said earlier. I can't control the room, but I can control how I respond to it.
And that response starts with the pause.
It's interesting how something so small can make such a big difference.
Small changes in awareness often lead to big changes in communication.
I think I'm starting to see conversations differently now.
That's the beginning of improvement.
I need something more concrete. Right now it feels clear in theory, but I'm not sure what to actually do in the moment.
That's fair. Understanding the idea is one thing. Applying it in real time is another. Let's break it down into a few simple habits you can rely on.
Good. I need something practical. Otherwise, I'll just go back to my old habits.
The first habit is simple but not easy. Observe first.
Observe first, meaning don't speak immediately?
Exactly. When you enter a conversation, give yourself a few seconds. Look around. Notice who is speaking and who is listening.
Let me think. So, instead of preparing what I want to say, I should focus on what's already happening.
Yes. You're collecting information before you react.
That already feels different. Usually, I'm thinking about my response even before someone finishes speaking.
That's very common, but if you shift your attention outward, you start seeing details you would normally miss.
Like, what kind of details?
That leads to the second habit. Listen to tone, not just words.
Tone. So, how something is said, not just what is said.
Right. Two people can say the same sentence, but mean completely different things depending on their tone.
Let me try to imagine that. If someone says, "I'm fine," it could mean they're actually fine, or it could mean something is wrong.
And the tone will tell you which one it is.
So if I ignore tone, I might respond in the wrong way.
Exactly. You might joke when someone is serious, or stay quiet when someone is inviting a response.
I've definitely done that before.
Most people have. That's why this step matters. Listen not just for meaning, but for feeling.
Okay, observe first, then listen to tone. What comes next?
The third habit is noticing energy shifts.
Energy shifts. That sounds a bit abstract.
It can sound that way, but it's actually very practical. Pay attention to how the atmosphere changes during a conversation.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Imagine a group is laughing and speaking freely, and suddenly one person shares something serious. The energy drops. The room becomes quieter.
So the conversation changes direction.
Yes, and if you don't notice that shift, you might continue with the same energy as before.
Which would feel out of place.
Exactly. Reading the room means adjusting when the energy changes.
Let me think. So I should constantly check if the mood is staying the same or changing.
That's a good way to see it. You're staying aware of the flow, not just individual sentences.
I like that idea. It makes conversation feel more dynamic, not fixed.
That's because it is dynamic. It's always moving.
And I've been treating it like something static, like I can just jump in any time.
That's where most mistakes happen.
All right, what's the last habit?
The fourth one is a simple question you ask yourself before speaking. Is this the right moment?
That sounds almost too simple.
It is simple, but it forces you to pause.
Let me try that in my head. If I'm about to speak, I ask myself, is this the right moment?
And even that 1 second of reflection can change your response.
Maybe I realize it's not the right moment and I wait.
Or you adjust what you are going to say.
Or I say it in a softer way.
Exactly. You're creating space between impulse and action.
I think that's what I've been missing, the space.
Most people don't realize how important that space is.
All right, let me put this together. First, I observe, then I listen to tone, then I notice if the energy changes, and before I speak, I ask myself if it's the right moment.
That's the full process.
It feels like a lot to do at once.
At first, it might feel that way, but with practice, it becomes automatic.
Maybe I should start with just one step, like observing first.
That's a good approach. Build it gradually.
And I guess I don't have to be perfect. Even noticing one small detail is better than reacting without thinking.
That's the right mindset. Improvement comes from awareness, not perfection.
I'm starting to see conversations less as something I need to control and more as something I need to understand.
And once you understand the room, your words naturally become more appropriate.
It's interesting. Speaking less at the right time might actually make me sound more confident.
It often does.
That's surprising to me. I always thought confidence meant saying more, not less.
A lot of people think that, but there's another kind of confidence that doesn't depend on constant talking.
The quiet kind?
Yes, the kind where you don't feel the need to react immediately. You give yourself time, and that time gives your words more weight.
That feels connected to everything we've been talking about. Slowing down, observing, choosing your moment.
It is connected, and it also ties into something deeper. Self-control.
Self-control in conversation?
Think about it this way. Most reactions are automatic. You hear something, you feel something, and you respond right away.
That's exactly how I usually operate.
But when you pause, even briefly, you interrupt that automatic pattern. You create a small gap between what you feel and what you say.
And in that gap, I can choose a better response.
Or choose not to respond at all.
That still feels difficult. Sometimes silence makes me feel like I'm missing an opportunity.
It can feel that way, but silence isn't always a loss. Sometimes it's a sign that you're paying attention.
So instead of seeing silence as empty, I can see it as intentional.
That's a good way to look at it. You're not silent because you have nothing to say. You're silent because you're choosing the right moment.
That changes how it feels. It becomes more active, not passive.
And over time, people notice that. They notice that when you speak, it matters.
Speaking less, but better.
That's the idea. You don't need to fill every space. You just need to add value when you do speak.
I think I've been doing the opposite, filling space without thinking about whether it adds anything.
And now you're starting to shift that pattern.
It feels calmer, too, like I don't have to rush anymore.
That calmness is part of it. When you're not rushing, you're more present.
And when I'm more present, I can actually read what's happening around me.
Which brings everything together.
It's interesting. This isn't just about language, it's about how you carry yourself in a conversation.
That's right. Language is only one part. Awareness is the foundation.
I'm already thinking about how I'll approach my next conversation differently.
What would you change?
First, I'd slow down. I wouldn't rush to speak just because there's a pause.
That's a strong start.
Then I'd pay attention more, not just to words, but to tone, expressions, and the overall mood.
Good.
And before I say anything, I'd ask myself if it's the right moment, even if it's just a quick check in my mind.
That one question can guide you more than you expect.
I feel like this will make my conversations feel more natural, not forced.
It usually does. When your words match the moment, everything flows better.
And if I'm not sure, I can always choose to wait.
Waiting is often the safer and wiser option.
This has been eye-opening. I used to think communication was about having the right words. Now it feels more like having the right awareness.
That's a simple way to put it.
So if I had to sum it up for myself, observe first, understand the moment, and then speak with intention.
That's all you really need. If you can do that, your conversations will improve naturally.
I guess the goal isn't to speak more, it's to speak better.
And sometimes the best thing you can say is nothing at all.